Very emotional, very, very emotional. I think what we saw was something that has happened to a lot of people of color on an everyday basis. You know, it's happened to me when I was young. It's happened to me on a number of occasions. But this particular occasion, it happened to a guy who has the celebrity, has the long money to be able to fight it legally. If there's any misconduct that was done or anything like that, I've seen the video, and I don't even know if there's enough video there to even really make a determination of anything that's happened. But I think people watching need to understand this, continue to support the players. Because what happened was it happened to a guy like Michael Bennett, a guy that's irreplaceable on one of the premier teams in the National Football League. Then you get a guy like Pete Carroll comes out with a statement that he came out with that's kind of bringing everybody together and saying that we shouldn't be tolerating injustice for anybody of any color. Then you get Roger Goodell starting to make his statement, which was a strong statement. I was actually surprised that he came out with it so fast. You know what I mean? And then you start to think, okay, this is what Colin was kind of taking the knee to kind of, you know, get to happen. And I think if we can just continue to support the players, you'll start to see more demonstrations of unity and can show the country how to do it.
Mike, I believe it's going to get bigger because of this, and this is the part that people don't know. According to sources who are familiar with this Michael Bennett situation, and since he started his anthem protest, he's been in communication with former President Barack Obama even before this incident happened, because this is an issue that is important to Obama, and these two have been in communication, and I would expect that Obama would show his support at some point or get involved here because this is an issue that is important to him and certainly to Michael Bennett, especially after this situation here.
I think one of the things that's very disheartening is everybody wants to say, well, let me see the evidence. We all know there's bad people in every profession. Athletes, doctors, policemen, Army, firemen. People make bad decisions because we're human. We have human error. But at the same time, one of the things that's very challenging is there is a disconnect with the local law enforcement and people of color. African American, Latino American, all different kinds of races. There's a woman that was in Minnesota who was killed, who was non-African American. People are getting shot and killed and harassed by law enforcement every single day. The difference is now things are being caught on camera, and they have to answer to it. That's the difference.
And I think, too, when Colin Kaepernick started these protests, it divided a lot of people on the subject. It was sort of a polarizing thing, but why he was doing it was meant to bring people together and shed a light on it. And at the end of the day, we all sort of do need to come together and acknowledge that these things are happening. And yes, we're here to talk about football, but this is happening all around us. This is our reality.
And I gotta add this. Michael Bennett wanted me to say, he did not ask or he did not want this to happen to him. You know, this is not something he wanted. He didn't want to experience this. You know, I've looked on Twitter and people hit me up all the time and say, well, you know, isn't this ironic that, you know, he's disrespecting this and now he needs the lay of the law of the land. That's not the case. You see what I'm saying? He didn't want this to be brought on him, and nobody should have something, have a situation like this brought into their life.
Well, we'll see Michael Bennett and his brother Martellus Bennett today as the Seahawks take on the Packers. In terms of the game matchup, what are you looking forward to?
I want to see Sheldon Richardson, how he fits in here. And this deal was on the table and kind of bubbling up for a while. Not just weeks. We're talking months.
Wow.
And then it really came to a head once the Seahawks lost their second-round pick, Malik McDowell, to an injury after an ATV accident. And I mentioned on a Seahawks blog talk a couple of weeks ago, Malik now may never play. Okay, I don't expect to see him this season, but that's why the Richardson deal for this season became so important, and they needed to close it out, and they did. So we'll see how he fits in.
For me, this matchup on the field is going to come down to, in man situations, Cam Chancellor going up against Martellus Bennett. Martellus Bennett was the second tight end with New England.
Yeah.
Went off for over 100.
Now, I like Rodgers because, you know, I used to play with his dad, play for his dad coaching, but I got Bennett.
All right. Listen, this guy, he's part man, he's part cyborg. We've got the graphics to prove it.
Oh,
it's
me?
Ian Rappaport. It's not you.
Oh.
There you go, a little Terminator action there. He's going to come in
Not
to
all
give
about
us
you, Steve.
some of the biggest stories around the league. And, Ian, let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. Some people think they're tanking. I don't. I just believe it's a new regime trying to capitalize on some value for the previous regime's mistakes, maybe. Ian, who do you got?
Well, let's talk about the house cleaning that they had during this past offseason. Of course, Sammy Watkins, Ronald Darby, not alone in being sent away in a trade. Reggie Ragland was another, as Brandon Beane, the new general manager, and Sean McDermott tried to remake this franchise. Another key player, potential and former face of the franchise who is now in the crosshairs, Marcel Darius, who's, of course, signed the 6-year, $96 million contract a couple years ago. I am told he is in a make-or-break year for the Buffalo Bills, needs to show this administration that he is, in fact, all in to stay with this team. Now, this is the same Marcel Darius who got sent home from the third week of the preseason from that game for violating a team rule. He does have a tough contract to get out from under, but this is a player, a really good player, who needs to show the team a lot during this 2017 season.
Ian, on the day of final cuts, I heard from several people around the league, if you play